Hello, and welcome to The Painful Truth. In our docuseries, you will hear stories of PPCM survivors talking about a common disease. PPCM stands for peripartum cardiomyopathy, which is a preventable pregnancy-induced heart failure. PPCM, it's not rare, it's just rarely diagnosed. Early diagnosis saves lives. Hi, today we are here to talk about the painful truth of the maternal mortality deaths in the United States of America and what women are challenged with when there is prevention. Early diagnosis saves lives. It is medically proven that no woman should ever suffer or die from maternal mortality and peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM, unless she is never diagnosed or treated. This is a prevention project because there is medical proof. So we are here to talk to you today about the painful truth of this family who lost a young woman lost her life due to this disease, due to the medical community not fully educated or trained regarding the preventions for maternal mortality. Today I have Tracy with us today, and she is going to tell me about her experience and how she has come to learn about this disease. Tracy, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having me.
And give me your time and talking about this painful truth of the story of what happened to your beautiful daughter and your grandson. How old was she when she was first diagnosed?
Well, she was 23 years old.
And at what time of the month or how many weeks pregnant was when she was diagnosed?
She was never diagnosed from the hospital. You know, she went in not feeling well and was concerned, scared. She didn't know what was going on. She had a lot of the symptoms, but nobody was saying anything and telling us anything. When we walked in, you know, her first, we didn't even know who he was standing behind the desk, a man in scrubs. And that's when she walked in the hospital. And
was she currently pregnant?
She was 32 weeks.
She was 32 weeks
she
pregnant.
Had called her OBGYN to get in to see him that day, but he would not see her.
Okay. And so here she's obviously trying to self-advocate, communicate, but there was still a disconnect on having any awareness of peripartum cardiomyopathy at 32 weeks pregnant, which indicates that she was provided zero testing for diagnosis, correct?
Yeah, she had no testing for nothing, you know, but she had the swelling. Mm-hmm. She had the vision issues and the breathing issues. So we did not know. We took her blood pressure at home because my sister was there and she had high blood pressure. And she informed them and they still, you know, go do labor and delivery. Mm-hmm. So immediately we went to me, her, and her sister.
Okay, and so at 32 weeks pregnant, her expressing that she feels like she's dying because in fact she was. What were the doctors indicating that was actually the issue at 32 weeks pregnant? What were they saying that her diagnosis was, or was she sent home?
Well, we went into the hospital and they took her blood pressure. The young girl said, if, you know, your blood pressure's high, we're going to keep you here in the little room. You know, I think it looked like a triage room for a little bit of observation. Mm-hmm. And she never was stable. She mm-hmm. came in and gave her a blood pressure medication pill. And she goes, I'm going to come back in 15 minutes. Well, you know, the nurse was just talking, you know, trying to relax everybody because we were really like concerned what was going on. And was more talking about herself actually than anything about Demi, because Demi told her all her symptoms. They gave her a pill and she goes, oh, your blood pressure is even actually higher. I've never seen that before. and then walked out of the room, and then they took blood work, and then she came back and she goes, well, it shows that you have some protein in your urine. So we're going to keep you a little bit longer, and by about 5 o'clock, she came in, she goes, we're going to keep her overnight, 24 hours, 23 hours to be exact, she said. And so we waited and waited. No doctor never showed up. Nobody came in to see her, evaluate her, introduce himself, anything. Her only contact, now that we know he was the doctor, was when we walked into labor and delivery, and she told everybody at the desk what her symptoms were and how she wasn't feeling good, And this man from the back who had scrubs on said, well, what did you eat? And, she told him, I had some Mexican food this morning. And he said, well, that's what happened. You ate Mexican food. That's why you're swollen. That's his exact words.
Right. So, and it seems like nutrition is where they go to. I was pregnant with starting at 105 pounds to delivery at 197 pounds, almost 200 pounds full of fluid. And my doctor kept giving me a nutritionist, and the nutritionist had me prick my finger every day, which was not comfortable, to say that I was completely fine and healthy. But they all misdiagnosed with the common sense and the lack of awareness, as well as textbook, that when you're swollen during pregnancy, it's not that type of weight. It's not like you're gaining fat. You're gaining fluid that's literally suffocating the heart until suffocation. And that's why this is easy to remove, and there's preventions. And it's painful. It is painful. It's a painful feeling. I went through that. I had cardiac death. And it's one of those things where people kept telling me, oh, what are you eating? What are you, it wasn't, my husband would monitor me as well. I was eating like red peppers and like water and barely eating, but I kept still gaining about 5 pounds to 2 pounds almost a day. And especially after I gave birth, that's when I finally coded for 3 months. So when he said, with an assumption, without doing a EKG, without doing her chest X-ray, he just assumed that
he didn't do nothing.
He just assumed that it was salt intake or some sort of like inflammation.
Yes.
Terrible.
Right.
Absolutely awful.
He body shamed her. And she was embarrassed, and she thought she did something wrong. Right. And all along, she didn't do nothing. She actually went to advocate for herself and got absolutely no care from the doctor.
Yeah. Same here. I was, they made me feel like it was like I was doing something wrong. It was my fault. And here was my first pregnancy, probably same with her.
Yes, her very
so
first.
We're relying on the doctor's word when we're literally, like struggling.
Struggling to be heard.
To be heard.
Yes.
And
no one valued her life, nor Malakhi's life.
Or even after the fact, when I came back from my cardiac death and went back to, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Beverly Hills, same. The disrespect beyond women, that whether you die or live through this childbirth, maternal mortality, the lack of respect and the unwillingness to be educated from an experience, because all our wounds have wisdom. Exactly. We know our bodies, and that's why they call it policy and practice within medicine. And there's the disconnect where women are still dying like it's the 1400s at 23 years old, when it's 2022. And we have all the preventions, just not the awareness and education to utilize and apply what should already be mandatory and standard.
Right.
Now, for you as a mother watching her daughter, say, I don't feel well, must be really hard, because as mothers, we want to help our child if they're sick and we can't.
Right. And in my era, you're to trust the doctors. They went to school, they know more than you, and that's what we did because, they didn't keep her the 23 hours. No one went to see her. I have documents from the state that she was never diagnosed. Nobody went in, nobody cared. They handed her a prescription, sent her home with nothing. And
how do
we're
they even know
assuming-
that they're giving her the right prescription if they didn't give her the proper blood test?
Yeah.
Which it should have been the NT-Pro BNP test. It's the only test that United States of America women can rely on. Only it's cardiology, but we're giving birth.
Right.
And gynecology doesn't have the BNP. So we're not going to, a cardiologist to give birth. We're going to a gynecologist to give birth. And the reason why women have such a high death rate we're one of the most wealthiest countries in the world. We have high insurance. We have, we pay up the wazoo. We're supposedly have the best of the best, but nobody's the best with lack of awareness as well as zero diagnosis in gynecology, except for an EKG. Again, that's cardiology. So the blood test is the only test that will determine preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, as well as, all these other symptoms that are being labeled as a diagnosis when in reality the condition is peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM. And the BNP test is the only simple blood test that could save a woman as early as 10 weeks pregnant with the preventions of treatment, whether it's a magnesium drip or, removing the protein with the, it's the the BNP test as well as the BPN. The BPN test, blood test, also determines the protein. So here we have blood tests that are simple, cheap, out of pocket, also covered by insurance. But because it's not mandatory and women don't know to ask for it,
Right.
and young women as well don't know, young women never think of mortality.
No, I would never be in a million years think I'm sitting on this couch talking about my daughter and my grandson who lost their life.
Right. And what are their names? Why don't you tell
Demi
the
Dominguez and Malakhi de Leon. And she was 23 years old, and she was about to graduate from Cal State Bakersfield with her bachelor's degree in psychology. She went to school. She worked with autistic children for Easter seals. She was just about to get married. My husband passed away in 2017. She was extremely close to her daddy. She was a daddy's girl. She pushed through it. She did everything she was supposed to do that we teach our kids. She followed the rules, and then to be failed by the system, to be failed by doctors, not to be heard, not to be valued.
Not
she
to be
was
tested.
educated,
Yeah.
She was scared. She went for help. She did what we are supposed to do. We go to the hospital for help. And then walk into a hospital with a doctor that, first of all, has a dangerous background, and he's the on-call doctor. We don't know who he is. We never seen him. We walked in to get help, and we received nothing. And she walked out, and she died 4 days later. When she could have had a magnesia drip, would have stopped the seizures.
It would have.
The ER doctor was crying when we came in that night, and he told multiple people in the room, a magnesia sulfate and better care.
What was, did she deliver before?
No, she had the seizure at home.
Like me, yeah.
She had it, and the time from the baby, Malakhi, having oxygen and the CPR her husband, a fiance, was trying to do on her, they delivered him, and they had to bring him back to life. It was 11 minutes of CPR on him. And he came back for 18 hours. I feel he came back to meet his dad. I didn't get to see him because it was so hard and I was so out of it. And my family was so devastated that they took me home. I was on the floor crying. I couldn't get up. So I had to say goodbye to my daughter that day.
Right.
And I didn't get to go upstairs to see Malakhi. His father went immediately, and their family went. And I think my kids actually got, but I don't even remember from the point of that doctor walking into the room asking who her fiance and mother were.
Right.
That's at that point I was dead.
Right. So, gosh, I'm so sorry. My heart goes out. I mean, this tugs on my heartstrings. This is why I started this docuseries, because it's so hard to hear that this can happen to a young woman when there is full medical studies and proof that this could have 100% been prevented.
Yes.
With early diagnosis of the BNP test, of an EKG, raising the lab screening and testings for all pregnancies can not only save a young girl, because this is a young, healthy woman disease. Any girl can get fluid. That fluid can crush your heart. This is not a potential heart problem. The heart is caused and affected by the fluid suffocating the heart. So the cause is the fluid. The effect is stopping the heart. So there's no excuse of why this had to happen. And it not only can save the mommy, but it can also could have saved the baby with early diagnosis. And if there is real medical proof, even at the IPAC lab at the University of Pittsburgh, Dr. Dennis McNamara is he's dedicated to this. Dr. James Fed is dedicated to these studies and the tests that are available outside of the United States of America. And I've called the main companies and I've talked to many reps, and the instruments and the kits for diagnosis in gynecology is available in Canada, in the UK, and other parts of the world, but not available or FDA approved in the United States of America. So women have zero blood test in gynecology for testing maternal mortality, because it's called the SFLT-1. The SFL stands for toxic cardio fluid. The -1 is genetic, and the PIGF is the placental growth factor. Those two tests together will determine the diagnosis of peripartum cardiomyopathy, as well as preeclampsia, as well as all the other symptoms. You cure the condition, you cure the symptoms, but you can't cure the condition until you're diagnosed. And without diagnosis, there's no treatment. So again, women in America have to rely on cardiology, but we're having a baby. So this is why the death rate in America is one of the highest death rates globally, all because of lack of awareness, the lack of screening labs and testings that already should be mandatory. And I believe I know that from my experience sitting here, whenever I hear, whether it's a man talking about his wife or a mother talking about her daughter, I almost have, because I had cardiac death, and when I woke up, I don't know. The first thing is they said I'm a medical phenomenon. I'm the 1%. They don't know how I lived, or let alone brain dead, because I was pronounced dead over 30 minutes, each
Wow.
cardiac arrest, and in a hyperthermia coma. So me sitting here with you today, I I feel a little guilt that I lived a little bit, like I have that feeling, like how did I live, and maybe your daughter not live, I get that. I always get that feeling. But I also feel like maybe I lived to so Demi can have a voice. Her life has purpose. Her life has meaning, and it really means a lot to me that people hear your story, hear Demi's story, the Mackay's story, the baby, and because they don't have a voice.
Yeah.
And so then I internalize it as like, okay, I feel guilty, but I'm also grateful because I'm able to help. She's probably kicking and screaming on the other side right now. Like, what happened?
Right. I meant it's like she was here and she was gone.
Right.
And it's just been so hard to accept that because I never thought that was going to. We were accepting a baby. We had a baby shower a week later. Everything was in place. Her room, she had it perfect for Malakhi, and it's just, it's sometimes just so unbelievable that how could this happen in 2022 or 2019? I mean, we are supposed to have the best health care, and
Well, what really, why I started this, there's a few reasons why I started this docu-series. And there's a very specific reason why it's going to be aired on February 14th, 2022, is that we have survivors in our peripartum cardiomyopathy support group that have been struggling with, as well as the follow-ups, because once you're diagnosed with this disease, it just doesn't stop there. Once you're recovered, there's continuations of like relapse and all these other things that come along with being a survivor. But there are women that have been struggling with this for over 27 years. 27 years. And it's common. It's not rare. It's rare for diagnosis. So women who have been dealing with this for 27 years, and women are still continuing to say the same thing, not being listened to. No, the ancient handbooks of birthing needs to be thrown away and get with the times, because we're still dealing with the same issues that women were dealing with almost 30 years ago, which shows that the neglect of this, the lack of support, care, respect for women, young women, and for our, at this point, it's for our children's children.
Yes.
This is a pregnancy movement, and this is global.
Yes.
But women in the United States of America have a less advantage and more of a challenge because we do not have the diagnosis in gynecology. Now, Dr. Carol Watson, my doctor who saved my life 18 months later after peripartum cardiomyopathy, I had a defibrillator removed. And on February 14th, 2018, she literally went into my heart that day and saved my life.
Wow.
And I'm grateful that she did that. And because of my experience, and because I have been, and it's been almost 5 years now, but I'm very passionate and persistent, and I'm dedicated to be heard. So Dr. Watson has collaborated a study at UCLA in California at the Women's Heart Health Center for Women, collaborating with gynecology.
Oh, wow.
Because it took me over 2,000 doctors in the entire state of California, and not one had any awareness. Not one would listen, really. They would, some of them, they would just, it would fall on deaf ears. And I realized this needs to be talked about on a broader, more, taken serious, where there needs to be real change, because there is a very easy, practical solution to a very serious problem. But I couldn't do it alone. Cardiology needs to step up. So thank goodness Dr. Watson has stepped up and has collaborated. So at least we can target California in the United States of America, and then hopefully FDA will approve the diagnosis blood test that should have been approved many decades ago. They say maybe in 2023. Hopefully this docuseries will raise that to the standards to be properly applied a lot sooner, because it's every 3 minutes a young healthy woman suffers and goes through what your daughter went through.
I know from the Kern County's public health department for Demi, there was no protocol even followed for her. No protocol for preeclampsia. They didn't follow anything, didn't monitor anything, and didn't do any of the urine tests or measure her urine, anything.
So they just literally left her to suffer and die.
And die.
And so I know you're working with Michelle with Watchdog.
Consumer Watchdog.
Consumer Watchdog. Can you tell me about that?
I am campaigning for Consumer Watchdog about the Fairness Act for 2022. It's going to be on the ballot to vote to update the cap. And it's been really hard because a lot of lawyers do not like to take on medical negligent cases.
Sure.
Because they usually go to trial. It's a lot of money, and there's a cap of $250 on everyone's life. So to trial a case it's very expensive. So I did have a lawyer, and I was paying. I paid close to almost $30,000, and then of course the doctors, rebut and want to dismiss, and I have to come up with more money. So I do have a GoFundMe for Demi and Malakhi to keep her legal case alive.
Which is also on our PPCM Fund website. We have the.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we have your. Can you say that again?
It's Justice for Demi and Malakhi is the GoFundMe.
And this is for
my legal fees, to continue fighting the court, to have access, So like I said, it's up for the ballot for California. Mm-hmm. So hopefully all the Californians will vote to update it, because families like mine can't get justice. Sure. The lawyers won't pick up cases. They might pick up one here or there, but they don't pick them up because it's too expensive.
I mean, I even called Aaron Brockovich's lawyer. I called 47 lawyers. I mean, my husband was there every day, and he's like, just stop. And I'm like, no. And I realized, and we went to a really nice lawyer, and he said, Lindsay, I said I had cardiac death. Right. My son was even in the hospital, and he suffered terribly. And now I have a deadly defibrillator in because there was not patch testing awareness, and they don't use scar tissue prevention because it's not cosmetic, although it's internal medicine. I mean, hello. You can't shove a defibrillator inside a young girl like that, I was dying again. And he said, unless they chopped the wrong leg off or left a utensil inside of you, you don't have a case. Yeah, I said I had cardiac death. Mm-hmm. I experienced death. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, sorry.
Yeah. Well, like with Demi, it's like I have been fighting to bring awareness to this for Californians to know that your life is only $250. You walk into that hospital, you don't know who you're going to get. You could get a doctor on drugs. You could get a doctor who's, you know, just not there that day,
Or one with just not
or
awareness.
or
With
exactly,
proper training and education on simple preventions.
exactly,
When a woman's suffering.
and calling for help, yeah, and or a dangerous doctor who has a past that the Medical Board of California continues to allow practice
Right.
and gets a slap on the hands. Oh, you're going to get a probation, and you're going to go to school for a training for 2 weeks, and then they're back practicing. And that's what's a lot has happened in Demi's
And who
case.
is the doctor that had the is going through the malpractice as well as having zero awareness of the preventions for this suffering and death? Who is that
I have
person?
two doctors that were harming. One was Dr. Park. He has now surrendered.
Park?
Dr. Park
In
in
Bakersfield?
Bakersfield. He has now
California?
surrendered his license. But again, I was very upset. It's been in the LA Times. Bakersfield's been a hot spot lately for medical negligence. But we have, like I have said, not the best care there. And the medical board allowed him to surrender under the pretense of retiring and medical issues, and gave him 30 days to surrender him, which is not okay and was not okay with my family. We were going to trial. I had the court date. I was subpoenaed. We were ready to go on January 10th.
And this is with Consumer Watchdog?
No, this is with the Medical Board
Okay.
of California.
Okay.
And the medical board offered him a deal. And of course, they talked him in, or he talked to them, and he took the deal and surrendered his license for 2 years. And on the pretense of health reasons and retiring. And he can apply again in 2 years.
Absolutely not.
So
Wow.
my case went all the way up to the district attorney's office, and they allowed
So
him.
another woman can in a few years, can experience this when the laws are probably not going to change, and the FDA is not going to approve the SFLT1 and the PIGF, and we have to rely on cardiology, which we're starting to, but wow. So
And I have another case on the other doctor.
what's the
with
other doctor's name?
The osteopath medical board, Dr. Yu.
You?
Like
why
you.
you?
Yes.
Like why you?
Why
Dr.
you.
You.
And that case is still open.
And that's in Bakersfield
That's
as
in
well.
Bakersfield as well.
So let me ask you, when you said we don't have, and this is across the board, great medical care or service, how much are you paying per month for not having any awareness and lack of medical training, but how much are you paying for that per month?
You mean medical insurance? Demi was on Medi-Cal. It was state funded. She was state funded.
She was
because
state
we
funded.
lost my husband. We lost him, so our income, we were hurting, and she was on Medi-Cal.
Wonderful. So that's great. I mean, like, I'm a Teamster. I've been working on top TV shows in Hollywood for over 18 years. And so my insurance was motion picture pension health plan. And they even called me and they said, you have never been sick in over 18 years. And all of a sudden we see that you had your times of death called and like all of this. What is going on? And I told them, and they said, well, we're going to completely cover you. And I kept getting all these kind of like, this is not a bill. And it would be 18,000 here, 27,000 there. It added up over $288,000. So an average woman without any medical support in America is paying well over either 50 to 100 diagnosed with this disease, easily over $200,000 to $300,000. And so the women are struggling because they're like, oh, my son's 8 and we just got out of debt like last week, or I'm still in debt, and my son is like 13 years old. So it hurts me and crushes me that American women, this all happened all because she wanted to have a baby and was left neglected and not cared for. And then here you have, all these other challenges with a new baby, as well as the fear and the postpartum depression that comes with it, the depression. And it's like a whole thing. Whereas like I would love to take pieces of other countries, maybe not solely their entire way of going about it, but with Canada, they don't have insurance. They don't have their completely covered healthcare. So as a woman in Canada that is diagnosed with peripartum cardiomyopathy, they're diagnosed during pregnancy because they have the diagnosis kit. American women are not diagnosed until after their times of death called.
Oh my gosh.
Or after they give birth. And this is kind of like unanimous, whereas not only do we not have the diagnosis available, but we also don't have financial support and care, once we're diagnosed with this disease. So it's a real, there's like layers of.
Oh, Demi was failed by everything. The system, the courts, what I'm going through with the courts, the medical board, the doctor, everything. She was failed, No one listened to her. No one valued her life. No one cared.
Well, I value her life.
Well,
and I care.
You care, and I'm making
angry.
changes.
Yeah, I am infuriated and angry with the system.
System's broken. It's not doing. Yeah, I have talked to senators. I have called the medical board. I have talked to the probation monitors. I have talked to people are fighting against the Fairness Act because the Medical Board Association is it's all politics. It's all, state doesn't want, they're being protecting the doctors. Doctors are being protected. The bad doctors, are being protected, and.
Well, yeah, that's what the lawyers are saying. They made it literally impossible for a woman to get any type of help or even sue, because with this disease, when you wake up from death, it takes you a little while to even acclimate on like, what the heck just happened? I was a very healthy girl until my times of death called. So how did this happen? And then the hospitals, the high risk management team, even at Cedars-Sinai, they know how to prolong you. And then once you hit that deadline of a year, you can't sue anyway.
Right.
So it's like at that point, you're defeated even before you even started.
Well, for us, it was grieving. My family was wiped out.
Absolutely.
I mean, my other children, and just to think about a lawyer or think about like the medical board and
a few months, and then you're halfway even eligible. And then I remember I went to court. I spoke with the judge twice, and he said to me, because you can't see my heart, right? But my heart is damaged. I had death. So he said to me, you look fine. Now, wait, if you were to see me underneath, my veins are bad. I struggle to breathe. And he said, we're not approving you because you look fine. But I said, well, how come a cardiologist says you have a better, the person in a wheelchair has a better chance of rolling out of the grocery store than you walking out, because your heart, you can live without legs, but you can't live without your heart. So you are handicapped to the point where you can die at any moment. Wow. And when he said this to me, and I'm saying this to the judge said that my fears are not valid. Basically, that a woman that has cardiac death from maternal mortality is not considered Social Security support, within the rights because of the way I look from the
Wow.
outside. But my handicap is in my heart. So it was, and then they wanted to it was awful. So the system of the courts,
Yes.
just from the lack of that, and then here I'm educating the judge, and he's saying, well, what you experience is rare. I said, how can you say that? We don't have the diagnosis in America. So how can you say it's rare if there's no diagnosis? And how could you even say that it's not common when it's just rare, to even have the awareness?
Wow.
So I mean, I was fighting a good fight, and I held my ground, but I still didn't. It didn't matter because there is a lack of understanding, compassion about our main organ and our main muscle in our heart, like the lack of awareness of it, as well as mental health. The lack of it is just unbelievable. And with you, with as a mom that had to watch this happen, and it was not planned. The plan is to give life,
Right.
not to die while giving life. Right. So when the husband, her husband or her fiance and the daddy and all of this happened, what was his words when this happened? Like, what did he express?
Xavier he handled it really well, but he was emotionally breaking down. But he was trying to hold it together as much as he could because we couldn't believe it. You can't even. I can't even find the right words of how horrifying this tragedy was because it was preventable.
Yes,
it was so preventable, and to try to pick up the pieces from your life and fight, and it's exhausting, and some days are discouraging because some days you feel like nobody really cares, like, am I just doing this for somebody, but there are days when we get texts from people and they're like, her story, I remembered it, I had some symptoms, I actually advocated, and my daughter lived, or I lived, we get a lot of that. Bakersfield had, I get a lot of those young mothers, but he's trying to figure out his way because he lost everything. His whole life was gone in 1 minute, and as for us, she was our baby, a month before graduating, I walked the stage for her, she was so proud to graduate because she worked so hard for it. She was going to go on to get her master's. They had a plan.
That was in the trailer when you went up to grab her diploma, and I remember that's what kind of wanted you here today and talk about this, because you said she was only 23 years old and you're getting your daughter's diploma for her, and I just, the amount of tugs on my heartstrings is beyond my sympathy.
Thank you, because
is beyond words.
There are no words. I don't know how I did it. By the grace of God, it really is by my faith in God that has carried my family. Like I said, she was very proud. I don't have a doubt that she would have done so much in this world for, she was, like I said, wanted to work for autistic. Well, she did work with autistic children for Easter Seals. They're a very good company to work for. Very, very supportive and helped out so much when we needed them. They stepped up to the plate. Easter Seals.
What was the name of the
Easter Seals.
Easter Seals?
She worked for Easter Seals. They have their own company, their own foundation, and they were very, very good to us.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you to Easter Seals. But, you know, we still fight every day. I fight for her. I fight because I know she's a fighter. She's a, and I continue, and that's why I share her Malakhi story. You know, she had a lot to give. She had so many friends. You know, she had a beautiful relationship with her father. You know, I just always, you know, she was named after her father, and her middle name was Reuben, and Xavier's name is Reuben. And so Malachi's name is Reuben. Her dad's name is Reuben, and Xavier's dad's name is Reuben. So that name has a lot of meaning to us. But, you know, to be failed, you know, sometimes I wonder about that night. Was she scared? You know, did she know she was going to have their seizure? You know.
No, to be honest with you, from my experience, and I think this happens, and I think this happens like before my seizure, right? And Sinai induced my cardiac arrest. I went with 104 temperature. The last thing I remember was I couldn't put my socks on. And they said, have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and Cedar Sinai. And my husband's mom was having Thanksgiving in Arizona. I don't remember the drive. I don't remember the what I ate, and I don't remember who I met. And it was because I didn't eat anything, and I slept the entire time because I was so tired. When I knew I was dying, and I said to my mom, and I said, you know, if I don't make it, you know, I'm saying my goodbyes, because I did know when I was dying. I was having dreams. I was having outer body experience. I was having, and I would say them to John, my husband. I would tell him my dreams. A lot of my dreams, I was in water, whether it was beautiful and it was tranquil, or the waters were rough. And now it makes sense why I always had those water dreams of the ocean and things, was because I was drowning in my own fluid. And you know, I felt myself when I was coding, and I knew I saw a balloon. I was holding a balloon, and I was holding my baby. He was 3 months, and I let the balloon go. And I remember, it was like the last thing also I remember was I was watching the balloon go up, and I was looking at the sky, and I had this like feeling like today's the day I'm gonna die. Like I can feel it. Like I knew it, but I wasn't like scared. You know what I'm saying? It was because there is peace. And I did feel like at that point I was like the walking of the dead. Like at this point, you're telling me where to sit, you're telling me where to be, you're telling me what to do, because I have one foot on the other side at that point. I was no longer, my soul spirit was literally merging with my soul being, and it was creating this energy that was giving me a sense of peace. Even though I was dying and I had my cardiac death, I didn't feel it. I felt it before I got that shot that they gave me, and they induced my cardiac arrest at Cedar Sinai. I felt that pain, but after that, it was almost as if like I was on a whole other dimension. There was like a healing dimension realm that I went to when I coded. I know I wasn't dreaming. There were signs that kind of led me, like literally like clear signs where I believe. And now I got my $1 million question answered, that, you know, energy never dies. And we are, you know, they say that Energy's been around for over 500 billion years. Planets have burst, new planets have formed, stars have burst, new stars have formed. But the one thing that's always remained consistent is energy. And we're just little specks in this big universe. And, energy is very powerful. I mean, you can think of a song and then it plays, or you can, someone, doesn't, you don't hear from somebody and they all of a sudden you think of them, and then that day they FaceTime you as a friend, or, Facebook you as a friend. I mean, there's energy, that connect people. I believe you and I connected energetically, and so that energy always lives on, which is why my mom, she's very powerful on the other side. She was a strong woman here, but she shows me. And it's interesting because it is what it is. I can go on about, the proof of the other side. I actually started a group. I didn't do anything with it, but I have all this proof of the other side. So I started it on Facebook, a Facebook group. And I actually, if you go on it, you can actually, I watched an accident happen, and I watched what I was feeling, which is the spirit, soul, and the spirit being. Once it merges, that it creates that light. I actually captured it. I have a more sensitivity to being aware, almost like it is an awakening, where the veil is so thin that the other side and the veil is right here. And it's thinner than we believe. And I believe, with my whole heart and being, like, how did I come back from death, cardiac death? It's a miracle. And I believe that there are, with modern medicine and everything, there are some things that even doctors can't control. It's what's meant to be, And again, I do have guilt of, like, how did I live and this one didn't? Or I feel, and that's when I'm like, I have to step up.
Right.
I've turned down TV shows to start this docuseries. I've rerouted my life. I've changed it because I care about Demi. I never met her. I've never met her.
She has a big energy too.
Yeah, and I feel like how we met so organically, that she's doing her thing. She's moving us like chess pieces, and saying, you just exist, and I'll guide you. I'll move your feet and I'll be with you. And I know that because I feel that with my mom, and I feel that with my dad, and I feel that with how things just unfold,
Right.
And I believe in justice.
I do too.
And that's what this disease needs. That's what Demi needs. That's what you need.
Yes. Yeah. You're exactly right.
Is justice.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I do. She deserves justice. She deserves to be here. She deserved to have Malakhi, go to kindergarten and Halloween costumes.
Yeah.
The stuff that I did with her, and she would have done it. She would have been an amazing, well, she is amazing mother in heaven, but here on earth, she would have done an amazing job. She always had a plan. And that's why it's so hard to see that the system failed, because she followed the plan. She never wavered, and then to be failed, with our system, our medical system,
well, that's why there is no system. We don't have a diagnosis in America.
No.
In gynecology. It does not exist. No. And unless the doctor has common sense to say, let's do an EKG, I'm not a cardiologist, but I'm going to refer you to one, and we're going to do this. We don't have a shot of surviving our American women.
And we'll continue having More deaths.
And we will continue and die like it's the 1400s, 1800s when there are so many preventions and it's so medically proven that it can be caught so early.
Right.
There's absolutely no excuse. It's appalling.
And the the with Demi and going through her medical records, they were doing tests that she didn't even need. Like monitoring drug tests on every so many visits. I'm like, she never did drugs. She never had them in her system. She never would do them. That's just who she was. But we'll do tests like that, but we won't keep up on her. I've noticed on her medical records, it wasn't a good system anyways with this doctor. He wasn't doing a lot of the right things he should be doing.
So it was even less than
yes.
that the health and wellness of your daughter had even less than what the health care should have provided,
exactly.
Which should have already been mandatory.
In your standard OBGYN
in the standard
care.
the standard care.
Exactly. It's very
and it's 2022 and women do not have any support. Now there is a woman, a young girl that came to me and she went to 5 hospitals in 7 days.
Oh my
and they all sent her home. This is in El Paso, Texas. And they all sent her home because they said she was fine and she had 0 diagnosis, 0 testing. They wouldn't give her the BNP test because they said she didn't need it. And that's when I found out that the SFLT1 and the PIGF was not available in the United States of America. And here Dr. Fett kept saying it's the only test that will determine other than the BNP, but this is for gynecology. BNP is for cardiology, so she needs that test. And I kept talking to different hospitals. I'm like, give her this test. And they said, we don't have it. So when I found out that there's an actual kit and an instrument for these diagnoses and that it does not exist in the United States of America, so it doesn't matter if you even have a good doctor of the best like I did at Cedars-Sinai, best hospital, best doctors, but nobody's the best with lack of awareness. But the unwillingness after the fact is what burns me the most and why I'm so angry with the system and with individual doctors is because at Cedars-Sinai, and the reason why I am sitting here with you today on the couch is because a beautiful young girl, Leah, died November 21st, 2021, this past November, at Cedars-Sinai. Same doctors, same hospital, East and West Tower at Cedars-Sinai, and she was left to die. And so they don't learn from survivors. They don't listen. No. They don't apply the information once they even have it. It's not mandatory and it's unacceptable. And it's unacceptable to make a woman feel like at a very high-end hospital, what you're depending on, that peripartum cardiomyopathy is uncommon, it's rare, and that I just got the bad luck of the draw.
Wow.
No. I got the bad luck of the draw of having every single doctor, including the ER clinic at Cedars-Sinai, having absolutely 0 of PPCM awareness. And they also, literally, I went there on November 16th with 104 temperature, dying 3 months after giving birth to my son. All my symptoms exasperating, them telling me on my discharge paper, I am not ill, I am fine, and that I'm okay to go to Thanksgiving. 7 days later, I had cardiac death.
Gosh.
So I went back to them and they're like, you were fine. I'm like, I had cardiac death. I was not fine. Hello. But they can't take any responsibility or even just say, I'm so sorry this happened to you. To the point where they're not even looking at me. She's looking at her computer and saying, I went to the best school of OBGYN and this is and I'm like, look at me. Maternal mortality is sitting right here. I lived. I was pronounced dead. And I'm telling you, I was not fine. I don't care the education that you had or have. It didn't indicate any awareness. You didn't know to test me.
Right.
So just admit that. Dr. Allison Canavan could not admit it.
Wow.
She could not admit
Well,
it.
it's the same thing like with Demi. I mean,
It was my fault.
preeclampsia.
It was my fault that I coded after giving birth to my son as a healthy woman my entire life until death.
Well, you would think that doctors would know about preeclampsia. It's the worst thing a pregnancy could go down the road. Would you take it a little bit serious, a little bit more for patients to, I follow the preeclampsia website.
It scares me. That site scares me. It terrifies me.
They send girls home all the time.
It terrifies me. And if you were to treat a young girl with high BP and swollen like that, and these girls, they don't listen because they're listening to their doctors, and we're the ones with the knowledge, and we're like, hey, tell your doctors, and they're like, what's that? What's this? And then you see them suffer. I have to stay away from that site.
I do too.
Because
But
they're
it's
so
constant.
young.
It's constant.
But young women never think it can happen to them, and young girls never think of mortality, let alone maternal mortality, could happen to them because they were so healthy. I was a dancer in yoga my entire existence of life. I started dance class at 4 years old. I still continued dance class. And I was and I am a very healthy girl until I got a pregnancy-induced complication. And a pregnancy-induced complication can happen to the healthiest young girl. And if anyone thinks that it can't happen to them or to their child, then they're just ignorant and careless of the possibilities on top of the unwillingness. Because I don't know when education all of a sudden became fearful. People are fearful to get a simple blood test, the BNP. People are fearful and say, oh, this is not joyful. I don't want to hear about it. But it's about life and death. And it's about women rising above what we haven't had. And your daughter, I believe with my whole heart that she is fighting this fight with you every step of the way.
I think so too. I believe that. I believe that that's what keeps me, and I believe that preeclampsia also, it's not talked about, and we didn't know about it, and neither did she. With the OBGYN, when you first go in, they need to have some awareness of all of it. PPCM, preeclampsia, the whole thing, and have a class or show them this. If you have these symptoms, let me know. But she did. She tried to tell him. She tried to tell him that she had a pulling, and he told her, it was just she was growing, and that was it.
Well, it's the placenta growth, which is why the only test for preeclampsia is the SFLT1, which is the cardiotoxic, as well as the PIG, which is the placental growth factor. And now preeclampsia is not preventable, but you can lessen the symptoms if it's treated as peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM. You can lessen the symptoms. With fluid comes infection. Most of these girls, they have C-sections. That's major surgery. I mean, it's major surgery to give birth either way. But it's major surgery, and when you're full of fluid and you cut yourself and that fluid does turn into an infection, yes, the women who are preeclampsia are now suffering from their infected fluid that could have been prevented as early as 10 weeks pregnant with the BNP test. So these women who are, they're like 18 years old. They're so young, these girls. They're 18 and they're like babies having babies, and their doctors are unaware and also unwillingness to be educated and trained. And these young girls are dependent on their doctors, and they don't get it.
Right.
So there will be continuous death. And that's when we're saying no.
Right. I say no, exactly. And like, I'm just hoping that California realizes where we're at.
So where are you at with this?
With the Fairness Act?
Yes.
The Fairness Act, like I said, it will be on the ballot in November 8th, I think, of 2022. It's up for the vote so that people will update the cap, and that will help families to have access to the courtroom. It's like they'll investigate a murder, they'll investigate, whatever, but nobody investigates medical negligence.
Right.
So there's no investigation and no lawyers.
Right.
If Demi would have passed away in an accident, I would have 15 lawyers knocking at my door. But since it's a medical negligence, they don't want to do that.
Right.
It's too much time, it's too much money. It's hard. The CMA is going to, protect the doctors. It's their union, and that's
it's like you can't almost die and come back. You also it doesn't matter if you do die. But what does matter is if the doctor is to chop off the wrong leg or leave a utensil inside of you is what they will take on.
Right. Exactly.
So women that are pregnant and suffer through this and live do not have a shot of any support during pregnancy, suffering, after pregnancy suffering, and the families have no justice even after the fact of death. So basically we are dirt that sticks to the gum, that sticks to the bottom of someone's shoe.
Right.
And we are women, American women,
Right.
that are just neglected.
Right. And the California Medical Board is not protecting us.
Absolutely not. And neither are the doctors.
No.
And no one.
No one. And the senators.
Oh, yeah, senators. I've been there, done that. I went to Congress, got the postpartum depression bill piggybacked with PPCM. I made sure that that this bill could pass, but no one ever heard of PPCM when I was there. And, it's the lack of the senator's support with
Yes.
PPCM. I was shocked.
Right.
I went to District 26. I went to District 28. I won't mention the names, and what's really interesting is that the entire office was pregnant. All the women
Wow.
were pregnant, and they had the awareness, and they're like, "Oh, thank you, that they have the awareness." But what about all the other women in Los Angeles that are going to experience this?
Right.
They blew it off.
No, we don't have protection
We do not.
or justice. We have to fight constantly to be heard.
As well as we have to fight with even in the wheelhouse.
Right.
The women will not listen.
No.
The birth keepers, doulas, midwives, they call this spam. They say that most of the majority, they say, "Oh, I've never heard of this," but they're not even willing.
Right.
They don't care about women suffering and dying if it's not joyful and holistic.
Exactly. And I'm hoping that maybe Demi's story could be just like 10 minutes of her little story in a doctor's office, and someone sitting in the room could say, "Hey, I have those symptoms," but that's, my goal.
I have been trying to do flyers in
Yes.
waiting rooms, flyers when they're going to the bathroom, when there's we take our glucose, we have to pee in a cup. Couldn't there just be something on the door
Exactly.
or anything? I spoke to over 2,000 offices, OBGYN offices in 5 years off and on, and not one. Not even in New Jersey and Cherry Hill when they had that baby expo. I tried. My mom just passed away. It was 4 months after my heart surgery. PPCM takes the whole family down. My mom got walking pneumonia. She was my best friend. She watched me suffer, tried her hardest to say, "They're not listening to you. The doctors are not listening to you. I know you. I know my daughter. I know you're not well." She, basically by my bedside, 4 months later, I was by her bedside. She had walking pneumonia and she died. And then 18 months later, my father passed away after her passed. But they were in love for over 54 years, you know.
6 months difference.
Yeah, they had a beautiful love story, fell in love at like a teenager at like 13. And then their end of their beautiful life, it was due to their daughter getting peripartum cardiomyopathy, and they watched me suffer until my death, and then they died. And then I lived, and they died. Yeah, trauma will bring up
everything.
Stress can kill, and you know this disease does affect not just mommy, the baby, the mother of the mommy, and
it's forever.
It's the whole family.
Go away.
It doesn't go away.
Grief does not go away, and it has literally took a toll on my family. My oldest son is now going through a divorce, and it's just been hard. It's just, there's no way to tell anybody. I live it every day. I wake up, it's there. I go to bed, it's there. You know, I haven't got justice yet. You know, I haven't been able to. I've been fighting with the medical board. You know, I blame them too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, they didn't protect her.
Well, there's no excuse on every level of layer of the lack of justice behind young women dying after childbirth,
right,
or during childbirth.
Yeah. How do they sleep at night?
That's my question. I know I can't sleep at night without literally fighting for this and to be heard and to get justice, not just for me, you know, because I had the best insurance, best doctors, best everything, but I still am a healthy girl, but I still had my times of death called. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody.
Yes.
And so, you know, like I said, you know, I've been working top TV shows for over 18 years. I get people who call me. I'm same producers, same location managers that I've been working with over and over and over again for years. They know my story. They know what I've been through. And so I tell them, I'm taking this break because I need to get your story out. I need people to listen. I need the hospitals to take women seriously.
Yes.
And when they are saying, I don't feel well, I feel this, I feel that, don't brush off symptoms and say, oh, it's anxiety when you haven't taken an EKG. Don't say that it's nutrition and your diet when you haven't given the proper blood tests. Don't brush off symptoms that are clear signs when a woman is pregnant saying, I don't feel well. Because we know our bodies. They don't.
I mean, I literally went and bought Demi, threw out everything in her refrigerator, bought her all new, whatever I thought. Because, again,
you thought it was, you were listening to the doctors,
Yeah.
and you thought it was nutrition.
Yeah, he said it was Mexican food.
Mm-hmm. I had a friend that even watched me suffer, and recently she told it to another friend. She said, oh, well, I saw what was in her refrigerator and blah, 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 blah. What? First of all I had was like vegetables and water, but that even made me upset because here this is a loving friend that still didn't get it. So it's like I said, the wheelhouse, other women are friends. If it's not even connecting with them.
No.
And it's not connecting with the medical board, and it's not connecting with the senators, and it's not connecting with FDA. It's not connecting with until it happens to you.
Right.
Until it happens to your daughter or to your, your son's, wife or your child or your cousin or somebody. Yeah. Then they care. But this is a prevention.
Right.
So care before.
Exactly.
So it's preventable.
Yes, exactly.
And at this point, your fight, even with justice, there's still not justice.
Oh no.
Because
for the rest
your daughter,
of my life,
for the rest of your life.
My heart's broken.
Yeah.
The what ifs. I should be at Disneyland with him. I mean, the last time we went to Disneyland, we went every year for the last 5 years, New Year's Day. I mean, well, probably when she was 13. And the last one we went together, she bought Malakhi his Christmas bowl.
Oh.
And she was gone 3 months later. You know, my family's broken. And I'm going to do my darn, hardest to not let another family go through this. Because I don't want my grandkids to feel it. I don't want my grandkids to lose their children. I don't want anyone I love have this pain. Because it's unbearable as a mother and as a father, I'm sure, too. And if I have to bear it for everybody, then I will. And I'll share her story so that they can learn and remember, like, hey, I heard that story of that girl from Bakersfield, Demi Dominguez, she had these symptoms, look it up, and if it could save a life, then, I'm okay. But I go to bed by myself still with a broken heart. It's just stitched together. But I will make sure, in honor of her and Malakhi, and that their story is heard.
Yeah, and with I'm trying to keep it together. With my help and my nonprofit, PPCM fund, what I can do is for you is help along the way, little by little, every day, find a little bit more peace with giving a little bit more justice. The press has been very supportive.
Yes.
With this docuseries, and when this is aired on February 14th, the press that's out there to let everybody know that this will be aired and starting the docuseries on the 14th, and this is the very first episode to the painful truth of maternal mortality deaths in the United States of America. And I feel everything you're feeling. I mean, my heart is stitched from this disease as well, and I lost my loves, my mom, through this, the recovery, possibly missing, the first few months of my son, not being able to breastfeed, being in a coma, and having all of this. I am staying strong for other women. Right. We literally, you and I are walking through fire like warriors, holding buckets of water for every other woman by putting out something that's so preventable. And I want there to be endless, I'm already full to the max of my scheduling. There's women everywhere from Scotland to England to Australia to Canada and the United States of America. I've already so many interviews that are really going to put this PPCM, peripartum cardiomyopathy puzzle that's global, because this is a woman issue. This is a woman global disease. It doesn't matter if you are in the Philippines or, at a village on the beach in Germany, or in Scotland or in America. If you are a woman, there is nothing that can prevent maternal mortality death unless there is this to be talked about. Right. To let's say, no, there is a prevention. There are preventions. There are many preventions. And this is so common. It's just rare for anyone to be diagnosed because we don't have the diagnosis. Right. And so these conversations really need to be talked about. Mm-hmm. And I know it's painful to talk about, and I feel your pain.
Thank you.
You know, I really do. I'm in I've recovered. It took me almost 5 years, to say this platform is for you. This platform is for the women who no longer have a voice, like Demi, for babies that, weren't able to be born because the lack of care of women's wellness is not taken seriously. So I fight that fight with you, and I will be okay, like you say, because, hopefully, and I know it will, you don't know who's watching. Mm-hmm. Half of the people that watch, they don't comment, they don't say anything. And when you think people are not listening to you, and I know you feel like mm-hmm. people aren't listening, they are. They're watching, they're listening. Whether or not they respond or not, that's okay, because it will save lives. Right. This conversation that we're having right mm-hmm. now that's being recorded, it will resonate to somebody, and somebody might have heard it and then see it and then say, wait a minute, this sounds familiar. I remember hearing this. What is that test again? The NT-proBNP test is the only early diagnosis in the United States of America, and it's in cardiology, even though you're having a baby, and it's kind of, so if we can educate an individual woman or a young girl that's pregnant, mm-hmm. or even like a man who's also seeing that his wife or partner is struggling, then you and I together with this pregnancy movement, because early diagnosis does save lives, you are being heard, and you are, to me, with you, everything that you're saying is the colors are clear.
Right.
And it shouldn't really be a fight.
No. It's just take care of your mothers. Take care of the babies. Do the right thing. Do the right thing, doctors. Listen. Take that next step, Just don't brush them off and act like it's not there. It's just a Band-Aid, Like with preeclampsia, it's a Band-Aid. It wasn't going to go away, she would have been, in the hospital longer, or watched, or even, being seen by a doctor. That's just crazy how they dismiss mothers.
Well, they dismiss it because there's no blood diagnosis, and because the standards of testings are exactly where they were even over 30 years ago. So it's Demi did all the right thing, like you said. Yeah, and the system, because we don't have a system, mm-hmm. is why we are set up for defeat. And this is extremely common because from what we know, it's every 3 minutes, and it's 1 out of 4 women. But how can you give a statistics to something that we don't even have an actual diagnosis for? So this is only what we know, not what we don't know. And, I've interviewed women that are like best friends, and they both got it. So it's like you put 1 out of 4 women, it's not that uncommon for women to get fluid. This is a fluid disease that crushes the heart. So anyone can say, oh, did you have a heart problem prior? Were you have a health problem? No, I was fine. We're fine until we're not fine.
Right.
And fluid will crush you, your organs until suffocation. Okay. And it makes me upset even with some of the media like US Times, they made it look like this disease is bloody and it's murderous, and they made it like a vampire 80s flick when it's not.
No.
There's no blood in maternal mortality. It's suffocation. And then they lied. So it's like the media and the press, we want their support. They have so much authority to really, bring light into this awareness, and they make a mockery out of it in the United States of America. And it's really insulting. And I was insulted by this Kimberlette James over at US Times because she not only, I caught her in a lie about the amount of views, but she was basically taking a woman, and she is a woman, taking this disease and making it a mockery. And I'll show you. I'll show you what it looks like. It's terrible. I'll show you the visual that we had and the visual that she created. And I said, you went so out of your way to redesign something that looks like a bloody vampire poster from like 1980, but you didn't even take the time to even research about the disease. Because if you did, you would know that just because it's mortality, that doesn't mean it's not bloody. It's not bloody. It's suffocating.
Right.
And again, I don't know why people like to use this term to me, but they seem to say, "Oh, my fears are not valid." Well, what kind of fears does it take for a woman like you, your daughter, a young woman? What kind of fears do we have to go through for them to not be valid?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, I find it just.
And she advocated. She called her her doctors and tried to get in, and
It's not a joke. It's not a bloody joke. It's not, and I'll even I'll even show you just how, and I'll even show the camera. And I did bring this up again in two other, interviews, because it's not right. So this is the one. This is what it should look like, okay? This is what we provided. I'm actually going to show the camera. Can you get an image of that? Yeah? Okay, so this is what US Times did to make our maternal mortality not like a joke. Let's get the camera on this so you can actually see this. You see it? So this is what we have to the press to expose the date that we will be airing the docuseries. And this is what she did. Hold on. Can you see? Now tell me, does that not look like a 1980s bloody vampire image?
oh yeah,
Isn't that terrible?
oh wow,
80s horror flick.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and this is the lack of respect.
yes, exactly.
I mean, this is disgusting. And she said that we had over 2 million views and that she's not changing the image. When she lied, and we only had 200. But even still, I said, I don't care about the
Right.
money. I don't care about the views. I care about women getting the respect and making us look like we're being taken seriously.
Yes.
Not like,
Yeah, no.
I mean, she changed a beautiful image, that was tasteful, that was nice. And she butchered it,
Oh my goodness.
you know?
Yeah, you're right.
And then she didn't even center it. So it was like, here it is, like, where we're giving our all.
Right.
We're shooting from
We're talking from the heart.
we're talking from the heart. We're giving our heart.
Right.
You
We're
know?
letting people know the reality of the whole situation of not valuing women, not valuing babies, not valuing taking care of our mothers, to be, not getting justice, and we're opening up to what this has caused. We live like I live the death every day. Like it doesn't go away. I'm
With
still
every
trying to pick up
breath.
the pieces of my life
Yes.
and trying to figure out how I get through the rest. And my children are doing that, and her friends are doing that, and her fiance is. We're still. The reality is still. How did this happen?
It will always be an open wound because this should have never have happened.
No, it should have never have happened.
If it's medically proven, and the studies have medically proven and shown that no young woman should ever die or suffer unless she's not diagnosed or treated.
Exactly.
And here we are sitting here having this conversation for the first time when it should be really an ancient conversation because women have been giving birth since the beginning of time.
Right.
And saying, where is the humanity? Where are the women who care? What will it take?
Right.
Maybe a celebrity to die.
Exactly. We are strong, and women are strong. Mothers are strong. If they would understand and group together, we can move mountains together.
Absolutely. I mean, Jessica Simpson, she had it go on her Instagram.
Kim Kardashian had it.
Kim Kardashian had it, charging a nonprofit that really is like paying for studies, for paying for women to live and survive life and death. And they're like, oh, you can talk to my publicist and it will cost about $125,000 to do a story on Instagram that may or may not disappear.
Wow.
And, I feel like it's unfair to charge even $8,000. Oh, she charges $8,000 for a story, but she's willing to do it for $5,000. No.
Wow.
It's like you're taking money from an 18-year-old that literally needs a heart transplant.
Yeah.
And could save a life. Just use your voice. Say 5 words.
Exactly. Well, I have tried to reach out to all kinds of media. Women of color, Latina, strong women. I never get response back. I reached out to, I just found out on her talk show, the Vanderpump Rules, the Sheena, I don't know her last name, Sheena. She had preeclampsia, almost died. She had announced it on her, and I thought, okay.
Here we are. Now do something.
Right.
Stand up for all women.
Right, exactly.
Like this, that's what we're doing.
Right.
We're sitting here today, literally our energy is over like 6 to 7 feet tall because we're standing tall saying other women should really want, that can make a difference, that can have a voice, that have over 1 million followers on Instagram, to say, the BNP test is early diagnosis for maternal mortality. Educate yourselves and your doctors because it's not mandatory. There's an approach that can easily, literally save lives.
Yes. Exactly.
I mean, here they talk about cancer and the preventions, but the BNP test is the early diagnosis for cancer. So why aren't they talking about that?
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, you do your research online. Does the BNP test determine elevated, the elevated levels? Dementia, cancer, colon cancer, fill in the blanks. It's all right there.
Right.
I mean, the fact that we don't know this and cancer has been around for so long and the big associations are not exposing this, it's like, why? If it can cure and save lives, and lives are priceless, then
Well, lives are not priceless in California
That's true.
because of the Fairness Act.
Because of the Fairness Act.
Yeah.
That's right.
They don't care. Families don't have access to, to fight unless you have money. And you know the right people or the right lawyers, then you might have a chance. But normally, you don't have a chance. So
Right.
you get justice for, families don't ever get justice.
You know-
Until, California does the right thing and update it. And then families can have access to the courtrooms, to bring accountability, to bring awareness, to bring tranquility to some of these doctors that are not paying attention to mothers.
Yeah. Well, we are definitely, pushed in a corner, and then we are in a very dark room, and we don't have very much say.
No.
And I, with my whole heart, I appreciate you
thank
and
you.
your time.
No, thank you guys
And just like talking to me about this. I know it's so heavy. I've held my tears back so many times during this conversation. Is there anything that you think that you would like to include that can maybe help another family, that could, a mother that maybe has lost her child to this disease? I mean, what are your wounds of wisdom that can maybe shed some light or maybe make another's heart feel lighter?
Well, there's quite a few in Bakersfield that we do have a maternal health crisis in Bakersfield. There's a lot of mothers that have lost their children to maternal health care issues. So, I know they're also trying to find legal help themselves. Like me, you end up representing yourself because you
Sure.
just get tapped out.
Sure.
But, that's with my foundation, I'm going to start, hopefully, like I said, in a couple, hopefully this year, I do want to help families have access to better care, knowledge. I've run into some mothers that have no money to go, they ship their children out
Right.
to, the hospitals because we don't have a level 4 in Bakersfield. So most critical babies, which I feel was a lot of Malakhi's problem, they didn't have the knowledge to care for him. So they wasted time, 18 hours there before he got shipped to Madeira. And then to find out that they didn't do anything right here from the hospital at Madeira. So Malakhi went through his own medical negligence on his own self. And I still have to do the medical board case on Malakhi's because they were not prepared. They had no idea what they were doing. So most babies that are sick get shipped to the bigger hospitals in UCLA's, the bigger hospitals. Those families don't have any money.
Yeah.
They don't have gas cards. They don't have, So we do need a level 4 in Bakersfield. I don't know what it's going to take for us to get one or us to get a doctor that actually cares. I think someone said, made a comment one time, we get the C doctors, not the A doctors.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So
or mostly nurses.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't even see the doctor.
Right. Well, Bakersfield's so, small, and we do need to make some changes. Some of the senators are trying to make some changes in Bakersfield because Bakersfield's been such talked about with the medical board, with cases that have been going on, and there's been quite a few doctors that have been in trouble in Bakersfield. So it has made a lot of media attention. So hopefully that those attentions, and Demi's story will help put pressure on the medical board and the state to do better and make some changes and make the medical board hold doctors accountable and just not giving them probation for 2 years and sending them off on a vacation because that's what they end up normally getting.
And how many days are you in court?
Well, we were going to go for a week, but that was when the medical board stepped in and offered him a plea deal, and he just, either they talked him into it or he talked them into it. I don't know. I wasn't access to it. After you make after you send your medical board case off to the medical board, you really don't have any say after it. Right. You really got to call and push and demand because they don't tell you anything.
Of
And
course.
they've been on the hot seat because one of the public board members has just like, I can't do this anymore. And he's been called the whistleblower for the medical board. So he's demanded an audit, and he's trying to get some stuff, to bring some light that it's mainly ran by doctors, and they protect doctors. So the public isn't getting their voices aren't being heard from any kind of medical negligence. There's a couple of the women there have lost daughters, and also, the doctors were dangerous. But, Bakersfield has a big maternal health care issue. We definitely do there. So my goal is to, help the families that have any kind of issues. But right now, I'm learning from people like you know, to be a voice and have a platform and try to bring awareness.
And I'm learning from other PPCM survivors. I mean, we all are learning from each other,
Yes.
and thank goodness that we have social media,
Exactly.
because now we're able to communicate. We're not shoved so far in a corner in the dark, whereas like we do have some voice where some are listening, and the ones that are not will eventually, it will catch on. It will catch on like cancer. Like nobody ever heard of cancer until somebody in their family started getting it, and then it became more common. Whereas this, it's common, but more and more people are starting to hear about it. It's like a radioactive energy that once you hear something, it's like you start hearing more about it. Once you're aware, it becomes a little bit more, oh wow, I heard that. Oh wow, this, and it starts connecting.
I've been lucky. The Demi story has been all around the world. I mean, I've had, friends in different part of the state, and I heard that story, or, and I've been blessed that way because that's my goal, is to go around the world with this, to share her story. But, you're right. We are learning from each other.
And this will go around the world. This is going viral. This interview that we are doing today, it will be, picked up. We have families all over the world that cannot wait to watch this today, and hear, Demi's story, your story, as well as understanding how can this continue.
Right. How can this continue?
Once we're aware and not have it applied, or not have the standards, treatment, and screenings raised, would just be careless.
Right.
Because now we do have the awareness. We know for a fact it's 100% preventable.
Right. Exactly. 100%. It is preventable.
So that's where our voice will go. Our voice just won't be going global, but there's a difference between listening and the information actually being heard.
Right.
So from our mouths to God's
Yes.
ears, to the angels above,
Yes.
And your daughter, this will be a success, and we will create change. And this pregnancy movement, we just created a big wave today.
Well, thank you.
And I, with my whole heart, again, with your other children and your grandchildren, and through this journey of just trying to create not just justice, but to save other lives from this preventable catastrophe. I'm like I said, I'm gracious, I'm grateful for you.
Thank you.
I do. I love you.
Thank you. I love you too. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Yes.
I mean, if we can help make a change, I'm in.
Well, we will. We already have. This the wave has just, for the first time, I feel for women since the beginning of time, we're doing more than what anybody has done because of our awful, painful truth,
Right. Our tragedy,
our tragedy,
our reality.
Till the day we pass on.
Yeah.
And so we fight it together.
So I'm in.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to the viewers that have been watching this today, this is real. This is the real painful truth. And we hope that our words will resonate and there will be more support on this disease, as well as learning more. Ask questions. Go to the website. Go to ppcmfund.com. Look at the women on our TikTok at PPCM Fund Survivors. A lot of women are going to be tagging, and we want you all to see the painful truth, so therefore this can be a ancient conversation. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed our magic minute on the awareness of peripartum cardiomyopathy and the preventions that women can still have today.